Silas Boone hadn't spoken more than a few words to another soul in 3 years. He ran his ranch alone in the hills north of Bisbee, Arizona. Just him, his horses, the wind, and memories too painful to speak aloud. Once, Silas had a wife, a daughter, and laughter echoing across the prairie. But fever took them both in the winter of 71, and after that, he traded conversation for silence. The ranch had grown wild around him, like the weeds that crept up the fence posts. Folks in town called him the ghost rancher. He only came in for supplies twice a year, and when he did, he kept his hat down low and his words fewer than his footsteps. But one blistering July evening, silence rode away on the wind. He'd just finished tending to a stubborn colt when he heard the knock, a rapid tapping on the frame of his weathered bunkhouse door. He hadn't had a visitor in months. He opened the door, rifle in hand. 3 women stood there, sunburned and trembling. Apache women. One was older, with gray in her braids and strength in her eyes. The second was younger, barely 20 by his guess, holding a cloth-wrapped infant tight to her chest. The third held herself upright only by will. Her blood stained her white dress at the thigh, and she leaned on a branch carved into a walking stick. She looked straight at him. "Please," the old woman said, her English thick with effort. "We need safe. Soldiers follow. They kill. Burn camp. We run." Silas said nothing. His heart pounded like hoofbeats. His rifle didn't lower. The wounded woman took a step forward, wobbling. "You got no reason to help," she said quietly, "but if you do, you'll sleep knowing you still got a soul." He hadn't heard a voice like Hayes in years, low, stubborn, weary. His rifle lowered. Chapter 2, Fire and Salt. Silas let them in, not out of kindness, he told himself, but because no one with eyes full of ash and death should be left to die under a mesquite tree. They didn't talk much that first night. He gave them cornbread and what water he had in the cistern. The old woman, called Nellie, fed the younger one, Mara, while the wounded one, her name, he later learned, was Tessa, refused help but couldn't stop her limp from worsening. By morning, Nellie sat on his porch grinding corn between 2 stones. Mara slept beside the baby in the barn's hayloft, and Tessa stood at the fence, watching the horizon like it owed her something. "You been shot?" Silas finally asked. Tessa didn't look at him. "Grazed. Ain't dead. You will be if you keep walking on it like that." She shrugged. He stood beside her, silent. "My man died last week," she said without prompting. "Cavalry. Burned our shelter. Left him hanging from a cottonwood." Silas said nothing. What could he say? He, too, had buried love. Tessa turned. "I'm no woman that needs saving. I'm no man who saves people." Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the wind held still. Chapter 3, Coyotes and Smoke. The soldiers came 3 days later. 5 of them, riding up the hill with dust clouds trailing behind. Silas watched from the bluff as they dismounted by his gate, heavy boots kicking up sand. "Government business," barked the sergeant. "We're looking for Apache renegades. You seen any?" Silas stared at him, chewing slow on a piece of hay. "No, they are fugitives," the man continued, stepping closer. "One's a killer. Took out a white trader near Dragoon Pass. That ring any bells?" Silas shrugged. "Ain't seen no one but coyotes." The sergeant narrowed his eyes. "You live out here alone?" "Always have." A beat passed. Behind them, Tessa and the others crouched silent beneath the barn's trapdoor, surrounded by pitch-black dark and the baby's breathy cries. "Check the property," the sergeant ordered. 2 men started toward the barn. Silas stepped forward, rifle cradled in his arms, not aimed, not raised. "They stepped foot on my land," he said, voice a gravel road rasp. "They won't leave it." There was something dangerous in the stillness of him. something worn raw by years of silence. The sergeant looked long at him, then grunted. "We'll be back. You harbor 'em, you'll swing too." They rode off, leaving dust and fret behind. Chapter 4, Thorns and Tenderness. Tessa didn't thank him. Not right away. Instead, she helped fix a broken wagon wheel the next day, despite her limp. When Silas asked her why, she shrugged. "Idle hands go soft. I ain't got time to be soft." Silas worked beside her in silence until she hissed in pain and dropped the iron wrench. He knelt beside her. "Let me see the wound." "No. Woman, I seen worse than a leg scratch." She glared at him, but she let him roll up the cloth. The wound was inflamed, red as fire. He cleaned it, gently, with herbs and spirits. Her breath caught once, but she didn't cry out. "You're good at this," she muttered. "My daughter fell in a creek once. Got a fever. I learned the hard way." She didn't speak again, but her eyes softened. Chapter 5, Lightning Breaks the Silence. That night, a storm rolled in, lightning crashing across the hills, thunder shaking the windows. Morris screamed in the barn, the baby in her arms. Tessa rushed to calm her, even through her pain. Silas watched from the doorway as Tessa knelt beside the frightened girl, whispering words in Apache that soothed the tremors. Later, after the wind died and the rain softened the dust, Tessa came to him where he stood under the porch awning. "You ever lose someone?" she asked. He nodded. "My wife, and our little girl. Fever took him. I was down in Tombstone when it started. Came back too late." Tessa's eyes glistened. "I was married 3 months. He was the first man who didn't look at me like I was born wrong." Silas said nothing, but something cracked open between them. Two wounded people, speaking pain into the night like an offering. "You're not wrong," he said quietly. Neither was a land, though it bore scars too. Chapter 6, Blood and Redemption. Days passed. The wound healed. Morris smiled for the first time. Naley sang lullabies to the baby while planting beans behind the shed. But danger wasn't done with them. The soldiers returned, at night this time. No questions, no warnings. Gunfire cracked like whips. Silas woke to the smell of smoke. One corner of the barn burned already. He grabbed his rifle, shouting. Tessa was already outside, helping Mora down the ladder. Naley had the baby wrapped tight against her chest. A soldier came around the barn, pistol raised.